Hey, Roger Martin here from Billings, Montana. Good day. This is Operation Freedom, and this is Dr. Canada, September 27, 2019.
The deep state act out. And by that, I mean, if you look at what happened this week with Nancy Pelosi calling for an impeachment inquiry based on this Ukrainian goat rodeo, the deep state is perfect at mirroring. Biden and his kid Hunter are the ones really who should be under the microscope and should have been for many years. Instead, they're focusing on this phone call. And let's face it, what Pelosi did this past Tuesday with this impeachment inquiry was political theater. In order to launch an impeachment inquiry, you have to have a full House vote. That didn't happen. The reason why this happened this past Tuesday.
Full House vote. Didn't happen. Didn't happen. A full House vote. Didn't happen. Theater.
Is because on Tuesday, President Trump declared war on the deep state and the globalists. He was at the United Nations and he said the following, quote, "The future does not belong to globalists," unquote. Folks, that's a declaration of war. And when that happens, the deep state always acts out. False flags occur. And this is why I believe it's important for all of us to prepare accordingly. And this is the reason why I'm doing this special report with Dan Brigman, because he is, I believe, our country's expert when it comes to your food and water safety. As I said, Numana, Numanna. Numana is the company that Dan founded with his family. He is the CEO, Numana.com. Dan, welcome back to the Operation Freedom platform.
Hold on.
Oh, it's fantastic to be here. Quite an introduction, Dave. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for all you do, Dan. You take immense grief for all the things that you do. You take grief for your fantastic book that really outlines what our country was and should be about. You take grief for your great radio broadcast, Power Hour Nation. And frankly, Dan, it's amazing how much grief you take for being a CEO of a company that protects every person.
Dave, it is ironic when you put it in those terms, isn't it?
Well, Dan, you have your finger on so many pulses based on your work as a CEO, based on your work with the radio show, also as an author. Dan, when you look at the landscape, there's a lot happening here. And my concern, and you can tell me if I'm justified, is that we're facing some potential huge events that's going to be disruptive to society.
Well, on your introduction, I'm so glad you brought up the United Nations and Donald Trump. That was, in the history of America, as time goes on, that may be one of the greatest speeches we've ever seen. He went into the proverbial belly of the beast. He sat in front of basically the diplomats that are trying to destroy sovereignty throughout the world, obviously pushing some sort of agenda, obviously working with all these fingerprints, these fingers have gone all over the world. He went right into the belly of the beast and he said, as you quoted, "The future does not belong to globalists, it belongs to patriots." And it was a declaration of war. I mean, even more so than his election, even more so than when he was his first week in inauguration and he pointed at Jim Acosta. Do you remember that? That may be the most important thing he ever did. I don't know if people understand the psychological impact he's had. He pointed at Jim Acosta and says, "You're fake news. CNN is fake news." And in that moment, America switched, or at least a large part of America switched. And you're right. He is fake news. The deep state. All these words came to the forefront. Well, now he just went to the CNN or to the United Nations and said, "The future is not for globalists. It is for patriots." Mm-hmm. You can obviously see, if you've been, listening obviously to your program, your great audience, they know there is an ideological, not only ideological, a physical clash inevitable in this. Globalism versus quote-unquote patriotism. In America, we look at, the Declaration of Independence versus the United Nations Charter. That is what our sovereignty, our individual rights, the Declaration of Independence, our rights come from our Creator. We are seeing a change right now in China. This isn't speculation. It's called the Chinese Social Credit Score, which is a little bit of a misnomer. It's a little bit of a fake out because it's not Chinese. Just China is where it's being experimented on. Google, Amazon, certainly Facebook, the other tech companies, all the other platforms, they have took the wealth of America, the wealth that we have given them, the wealth of the Western world, and they have perfected some system and now are trying it in China. What does that mean? What am I saying? You asked me a specific question and I seem like I'm rambling. The clash that is here and upon us is the clash of your self-identity. There is nation states, there are corporations, there are governments, there are unelected bodies like the United Nations who want to characterize you as consumers, who want to characterize you as basically assets or colonies or bees in a hive or whatever, not individuals. We hear the term social justice. Go to Google, type in definition of social justice. It'll tell you equal distribution of wealth and opportunities along lines of our society. And then it gives a sentence. It says, individuality must give way towards social justice. That's not me defining this. This is the definition that is being thrust upon us. This is the future. So when you say there's an inevitable clash, it is here ideologically. Our concepts